The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when the Rethali ships appeared on the viewing screens. Ambassador Cho Dae-won watched from the human delegation's platform as 3 vessels limped toward the station. Their hulls were burned and broken. Smoke trailed behind them like tears. They looked like they flew through a star. Lieutenant Park Hannah whispered beside him. Cho said nothing. He had seen desperate people before. He had seen refugees and survivors, and those who had lost everything. But he had never seen an entire species wearing that look of complete hopelessness. The Rethali were insectoid beings, tall and thin with 4 arms and large compound eyes. Their exoskeletons were normally a beautiful shade of blue, but the ones who stumbled into the council chamber were gray with exhaustion and fear. Their leader, Prime Minister Vashendra, could barely stand. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Vashendra spoke, her voice crackling through the translator. We come to beg for your help. The chamber held representatives from 47 species. They sat in their designated platforms, arranged in a great circle around the central speaking floor. Some leaned forward with interest. Others already looked away. The Keth Dominion has attacked our homeworld, Vashendra continued. They have blockaded our system. They harvest our people for their biological factories. Our children are taken. Our elderly are processed. We have fought for 6 months, but we cannot hold any longer. Captain Yoon Tae-soo stood at the back of the human platform. His uniform was crisp and his posture was perfect, but his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. He commanded the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge, and he had escorted hundreds of peaceful missions. This was different. This made his blood burn. We have asked the Velothi Federation for help, Vashendra said. They refused. We asked the Corinth Assembly. They said it was not their concern. We asked the Bright Compact, the Stellar Union, and the Free Worlds. All refused. She paused and looked around the chamber. Her compound eyes reflected the lights of 100 worlds, and in them was something that transcended species. It was the universal look of a mother who could not protect her children. The Keth are too powerful, they say. The risk is too great. The cost is too high. Her voice broke. My people are dying. We have nowhere else to turn. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Representatives shifted in their seats. Some studied their notes. Others simply looked away. Ambassador Cho watched them all. He saw the Velothi ambassador examining his claws. He saw the Corinth delegate pretending to read something important. He saw the careful, practiced nothing that filled the faces of those who had decided to let an innocent species die. Does anyone speak for the Rethali? The council moderator asked. More silence. Cho felt something move in his chest. It was an old feeling, something passed down through generations of his people. It was the weight of knowing what was right and what was wrong, and the heavier weight of knowing that sometimes you had to stand alone. He stepped forward. Humanity speaks for the Rethali. The chamber stirred. The human delegation was new to the galactic stage. They had joined the council only 50 years ago. They were considered young, primitive, and unimportant. Ambassador Cho, the moderator said with barely hidden surprise. Does Earth truly wish to involve itself in this matter? We do. Vashendra turned to face him. Hope flickered in her tired eyes, but it was a fragile thing. She had hoped before and been disappointed. The Keth Dominion is not to be challenged lightly, the Velothi ambassador called out. Their fleet numbers in the thousands. Their warriors know no mercy. What can humanity offer against such power? Cho looked at him steadily. We can offer ourselves. Yourself? The Corinth delegate laughed. Humans have, 50 combat vessels? The Keth will destroy you in days. Perhaps. Cho turned to his communications officer. Lieutenant Park, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Hannah's fingers moved quickly across her console. Channel open, sir. Cho spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Ambassador Cho Daewon at the Galactic Council. The Rethali species faces extinction at the hands of the Keth Dominion. I am formally requesting military intervention under Humanitarian Protocol 7. The channel was silent for a long moment. Then a voice came through, calm and measured. "Ambassador Cho, this is Earth Command. We have reviewed the situation. Intervention is approved." The chamber buzzed with surprised whispers. However, the voice continued. "Given the scale of Keth forces, Command is authorizing the deployment of Protocol Omega." The human delegation went very still. Captain Yoon's face became like stone. Lieutenant Park stopped breathing for a moment. "Understood, Command," Cho said. "Protocol Omega is acknowledged and accepted." "What is Protocol Omega?" The moderator asked. Cho did not answer immediately. He looked at Vashendra, who stood trembling with confused hope. "Prime Minister," he said gently, "before we proceed, you must understand something. We will help you. We will fight for your people as if they were our own. But our methods are not like others." "I do not understand," Vashendra said. "Humanity was born on a world that tried to kill us every day," Cho explained. "We survived ice ages and plagues and predators and ourselves. We learned that when you have nothing left to lose, you become something that cannot be stopped." He stepped closer to her, and his voice dropped low. "Protocol Omega is not a weapon. It is a promise. Once we commit to your cause, we will not stop. We will not negotiate. We will not retreat. We will hunt the Keth across every star and every planet until they release your people and pay for what they have done. This is not war as others fight it. This is what happens when you hurt the innocent in front of humans." Vashendra stared at him. "Why? Why would you do this for strangers?" Cho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who understood pain and had decided to do something about it. "Because someone has to," he said simply. "And because we remember what it feels like to have no one come when you call for help." He turned back to the council. "Inform the Keth Dominion that humanity is coming. Tell them they have one chance to withdraw and release all prisoners. If they refuse, they will learn why our ancestors called Earth a death world." The Valathi ambassador leaned forward. "You speak boldly, but the Keth have crushed species far more powerful than yours." "Perhaps." Cho nodded slowly. "But those species knew when to stop. They knew when to surrender. They knew when the cost became too high." His eyes grew hard. "We do not." Captain Yoon stepped forward and placed his hand over his heart in the human military salute. "The fleet will be ready within 72 hours. Ambassador." As the human delegation prepared to leave, Vashendra caught Cho's arm. Her grip was weak, but her eyes were burning with something new. "Ambassador." "Thank you." Cho placed his hand over hers. "Do not thank us yet, Prime Minister. Thank us when your children are home and safe. Thank us when the Keth learn the price of cruelty." He walked away, and behind him, the Galactic Council watched in confused silence. They did not understand what they had just witnessed. They did not know that they had just watched humanity draw a line in the stars. But they would learn. The whole galaxy would learn. Humanity had been asked for help, and humanity had answered. Now the Keth Dominion would discover what happened when you woke the sleeping giant, and the galaxy would never forget. The staging area hung in the darkness between stars, far from any world or station. Here, 47 human warships gathered like wolves preparing for a hunt. At the center of the formation sat the carrier Unbroken Will, and on her bridge, Admiral Baek Jiho studied the tactical displays with calm, steady eyes. "The last ships have arrived, Admiral," his aide reported. "The fleet is at full strength." Jiho nodded slowly. He was an older man with gray at his temples and lines carved deep into his face. Those lines had been earned across 3 interstellar conflicts, and each one had taught him something important about war. "What do the observers think?" he asked. "They are confused, sir." The aide pulled up a secondary display. The Velothi and Corinths sent monitoring vessels. They expected us to bring more ships. They expected us to match the Keth numbers. Yes, sir. They believe we are committing suicide. Jiho almost smiled. Good, let them believe that. In the main briefing room of the Unbroken Will, the senior officers had gathered around a long table. They wore the dark gray uniforms of the Human Defense Force, and their faces showed no fear. Only focused. Dr. Shin Yuna stood at the head of the table. She was the fleet's chief strategist, a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that worked like a computer. She had designed Protocol Omega, and now she would explain it to those who would carry it out. "You all know why we are here," she began. "The Rithali are dying. The Keth Dominion is killing them. The galaxy has decided that they are not worth saving." She touched the control, and the display showed the Rithali system. Red markers indicated Keth positions. There were hundreds of them. The Keth have 800 combat vessels in the system. They have ground forces on 3 Rithali worlds. They have processing stations where they turn living beings into raw materials. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. "By conventional military thinking, we cannot win this fight." Sergeant Major Quan Hyan leaned forward. He was a broad-shouldered man with scars on his hands and a reputation that made enemies afraid to sleep. He led the Special Operations Unit known as the Wolves. "Then we do not fight conventionally," he said. "Exactly." Yuna nodded. "Protocol Omega is not about matching their numbers or their firepower. It is about something far more dangerous. It is about showing them what humanity truly is." She changed the display. Historical images appeared. Ancient battles from Earth. Guerrilla fighters hiding in jungles. Resistance movements striking from shadows. Ordinary people standing against impossible odds. "Our ancestors learned something important," Yuna continued. "When you cannot win through strength, you win through will. When you cannot defeat your enemy in open battle, you break their spirit. You make them afraid to close their eyes. You make them question every shadow." "Psychological warfare," Captain Yoon said from his seat. "More than that." Yuna turned to face them all. "Total commitment. The Keth have never faced an enemy who would not surrender. They have never faced an enemy who would rather die than stop fighting. They do not understand the concept of fighting for something beyond yourself." She pulled up another display. This one showed the Keth command structure. The Keth are efficient. They are brutal. They are used to winning through overwhelming force. But they have a weakness. They fight for resources and power. They do not fight for belief. When the cost becomes too high, they withdraw and find easier targets. "We make the cost too high," Admiral Beak said from the doorway. He had entered silently and now stood with his arms crossed. "Yes, Admiral. We make them understand that fighting us will cost them everything. Not just ships and soldiers, but their peace of mind, their confidence, their belief that they are safe anywhere in the galaxy." In the ship's lower decks, Corporal In Su-min checked her equipment for the 3rd time. She was young, barely 22, and this would be her first major combat deployment. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat fast. "Nervous?" asked the soldier beside her. "Should I be?" The veteran laughed. "You should be smart. Fear keeps you alive. The trick is not letting it control you." Su-min looked around the equipment bay. Hundreds of soldiers prepared their gear. They cleaned weapons and checked armor and wrote messages to family members they might never see again. "Why do we do this?" she asked quietly. "The Rithali are strangers. They are not even the same species." The veteran stopped what he was doing. He looked at her with old eyes and a young face. "My grandmother used to tell me a story," he said. "During the old wars on Earth, there was a village that no one would help. They were poor and weak and had nothing to offer. Everyone said they were not worth saving. What happened? Strangers came. They did not know the village. They had no reason to help. But they fought anyway. They bled and died for people they had never met. Why?" The veteran shrugged. "Because they could not walk away. Because they knew what it felt like to be forgotten. Because sometimes the only thing that makes us human is choosing to care when no one else will." He went back to his work, and Su-min thought about his words. She thought about the Rithali children being taken. She thought about mothers watching their families disappear. She thought about the silence of a galaxy that had looked away. And she understood. On the bridge, Admiral Beak received a communication from Earth Command. "Admiral, the Keth Dominion has responded to our warning." What did they say? They laughed. Their Supreme Commander called humanity insignificant insects. He said he would add our skulls to his collection. Beak's expression did not change. "Is that all?" He also said that if we enter Rithali space, he will personally oversee our destruction. Send him my response. What should I say, Admiral? Beak looked at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying. Somewhere out there, monsters wore the faces of conquerors and called themselves civilized. "Tell him we are coming," Beak said quietly. "Tell him that humanity does not forget. Tell him that we do not forgive. Tell him that we have fought enemies far more terrible than him, and we are still here." He turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for departure. We jump in 1 hour." The ship hummed with sudden energy. Officers shouted orders. Soldiers secured their stations. The fleet began to move, 47 ships turning as one toward the distant Rithali system. Sergeant Quan gathered his wolves in the hangar bay. They stood in a circle, faces hard and eyes sharp. "You know what we are about to do," he told them. "We are going to teach the Keth what fear really means. Not the fear of death. The fear of what comes in the dark. The fear of what hunts you when you think you are safe." He held up his hand, palm open. "This is our symbol. An open hand. It means we offer peace to those who deserve it. But to those who hurt the innocent, it means we are coming for them." One of the wolves spoke. "What if we do not come back, Sergeant?" Quan smiled grimly. "Then we make sure they remember us forever. We make sure that every Keth warrior wakes up screaming for the rest of their lives. We make sure that the word human becomes the thing they fear most in the universe." The ship shuddered as the engines engaged. Admiral Beak watched the fleet form around them. 47 ships against 800. The numbers were impossible. The odds were hopeless. But numbers did not win wars. Will did. Spirit did. The absolute refusal to surrender did. He touched the intercom. "All ships, this is Admiral Beak. In a few hours, we will enter enemy space. The Keth think we are weak. They think we are foolish. They think we will break like all the others." His voice grew hard. "Show them what desperation created. Show them what humans become when we have nothing left to lose. Show them that we do not stop, we do not rest, and we do not ever give up." The fleet jumped to light speed, and the stars stretched into lines of fire. They were going to war. They were going to save the innocent. They were going to teach the galaxy what it meant to wake the fury of humanity. And the Keth Dominion had no idea what was coming. Asterisk. The human fleet dropped out of light speed at the edge of the Rithali system, and Lieutenant Park Hannah immediately began scanning the enemy positions. What she saw made her stomach tight. "Admiral, I count 842 Keth warships. They have formed the blockade around the 3 inner planets." Admiral Beak studied the display calmly. "Expected." "What about their formation?" Standard Keth battle lines, sir. They are arranged in defensive layers. If we approach directly, we will face concentrated fire from multiple angles. Then, we will not approach directly. On the main view screen, a massive Keth dreadnought moved to the front of the enemy formation. It was 5 times larger than any human ship, bristling with weapons and armored like a fortress. They are hailing us. Admiral, Hana reported. Put it through. The screen flickered and a Keth commander appeared. He was a reptilian creature with 4 eyes and scaled skin, the color of dried blood. His mouth was full of sharp teeth, and when he smiled, it was the smile of a predator looking at prey. Human Admiral, the Keth said. I am Commander Vethrak of the Keth Dominion. I will give you 1 chance to surrender and withdraw. If you refuse, I will destroy your pathetic fleet and use your bones to decorate my quarters. Beak did not smile. His face was stone. Commander Vethrak, he said quietly, you have attacked an innocent species. You have killed civilians. You have taken children. I am giving you 1 chance to release all Rithali prisoners and withdraw from this system. The Keth laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. You dare threaten me? Look at my fleet. Look at my power. You are nothing. Perhaps. Beak leaned forward slightly. But before this is over, you will learn something important about my species. We do not fight for power. We do not fight for resources. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And that makes us very, very dangerous. He cut the transmission. All ships, he ordered, scatter formation. Execute pattern Sigma 7. The fleet exploded into motion. Instead of forming battle lines like every other species in the galaxy, the human ships split apart. They moved in random patterns, weaving between each other, never staying in one place. What are they doing? Vethrak demanded on the Keth command ship. They are running in all directions. I do not understand, Commander, his tactical officer said. This is not a standard formation. Our targeting computers cannot predict their movements. Then shoot at all of them. The Keth ships opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced through space. But the human ships were too small, too fast, and too unpredictable. Most of the shots missed completely. On the unbroken will, Hana watched her console with fierce concentration. Admiral, they are wasting ammunition trying to hit us. Their formation is beginning to spread as they chase our ships. Good. Begin phase 2. Lieutenant Park, it is time for you to work. Hana opened communication channels to every Keth ship simultaneously. But instead of a demand for surrender, she began broadcasting something else entirely. Keth, Vessel Ravager, your commander lost 3 ships to human raiders at the Theta Cluster. Your crew knows he is a coward. Keth Vessel Bloodhunt, your engine efficiency is dropping. Our sensors show cracks in your reactor housing. How long before you explode? Commander Vethrak, our records show you executed your own brother to take command. How many of your officers are waiting for a chance to do the same to you? The effect was immediate. On the Keth ships, officers began arguing. Some demanded to know how the humans knew such things. Others accused each other of being spies. Stop listening to them. Vethrak screamed. They are lying. But the seeds of doubt had been planted. Then the human ships began broadcasting something else. Recordings from old Keth battles, but edited. The sounds of Keth soldiers dying. Screams of defeat. The voice of a Keth commander begging for mercy before being destroyed. They have our communications. A Keth officer shouted. They know everything about us. Fear spread through the Keth fleet like a disease. While the enemy was distracted, Captain Yoon led a strike group of 6 human ships around the edge of the system. They moved silently, using asteroids and debris for cover. Captain, we have reached the supply station. His pilot reported. Yoon looked at the target. It was a large space station where the Keth stored food, fuel, and ammunition. It was also where they kept Rethali prisoners waiting to be processed. "Can we get the prisoners out?" he asked. "It will be difficult, sir. The station has heavy defenses." I did not ask if it was difficult. I asked if we can do it. The pilot nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. If we are willing to take risks." Yoon thought of the Rethali children he had seen in the council chamber. He thought of their mother's desperate eyes. "We are willing." The strike force attacked. 3 ships provided covering fire, while 3 others docked with the station. Soldiers poured through the airlocks, fighting hand-to-hand with Keth guards. Corporal Im Soo-min was among them. She moved through the corridors with her weapon raised, her training taking over. A Keth warrior jumped at her from the shadows, but she was faster. She fired twice, and the enemy fell. "Prisoners are in the lower section." Someone shouted. Su-min followed her team down. They found hundreds of Rethali packed into cells like animals. The blue-skinned beings looked up at them with wide, frightened eyes. "We are humans," Su-min said gently. "We have come to take you home." An elderly Rethali reached through the bars. "Humans? We did not believe you would actually come." "We always come," Su-min said. "That is who we are." On the Keth command ship, Vethrak received reports of the attack on the supply station. His face twisted with rage. How did they get past our lines? Why did no one see them? "They are moving too unpredictably, Commander. Our sensors cannot track their patterns." "Then, we will make an example." Vethrak turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast this to the humans. Let them see what happens when they challenge the Keth." On every human ship, screens lit up with a horrifying image. Keth soldiers had dragged Rethali prisoners onto the deck of their ship. As the humans watched, the Keth executed them one by one. "This is what happens to those you try to save." Vethrak shouted into the broadcast. "Surrender now, or we will kill every prisoner we have." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Unbroken Will, Admiral Beak was very still. His hands gripped the arms of his command chair. His jaw was tight. "Admiral?" Hannah asked quietly. Beak's voice was cold and hard, like metal cooled in ice. "You just made this personal." He stood and addressed the entire fleet. "All ships. This is Admiral Beak. The Keth have shown us what they truly are. They murder the helpless. They kill those who cannot fight back. They believe this will frighten us." His voice rose. "They are wrong. What they have done has ended any chance of mercy. What they have done has guaranteed their defeat. From this moment on, we hunt them. We do not rest. We do not stop. We make them understand that every innocent life they take has a price." He gave his final order. "All ships, go dark." One by one, the human vessels shut down their running lights. Their communications, their trackable signals. They vanished from Keth sensors like ghosts fading into shadow. Vethrak watched his tactical display with growing unease. One moment, the human fleet was there. The next moment, they were gone. Where did they go? He demanded. "Unknown, Commander. We cannot find them." Vethrak looked at the empty screen. For the first time in his life, he felt something he did not recognize. It was the beginning of fear. And somewhere in the darkness of space, 47 human ships began to hunt. 3 weeks had passed since the human fleet disappeared, and the Keth Dominion was bleeding. Commander Vethrak stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, staring at the latest damage reports. His 4 eyes burned with exhaustion and rage. 23 ships lost in the past 3 days, his tactical officer reported. Supply lines have been cut at 7 points. 3 orbital stations destroyed. Ground forces on the second Rethali world have reported heavy casualties from unknown attackers. Unknown attackers? Vethrak slammed his fist on the console. They are humans. We know exactly who is attacking us. Yes, Commander, but we cannot find them. They strike without warning and disappear before we can respond. This was the terrible truth that haunted the Keth. The humans did not fight like any enemy they had faced before. They did not stand and battle. They did not follow predictable patterns. They came from nowhere, struck with deadly precision, and vanished like smoke dot in the asteroid field near the fourth planet. Sergeant Major Quan Hyan led his wolves through the wreckage of a Keth patrol ship. They had destroyed it 6 hours ago, and now they were scavenging its communication equipment. Sergeant, I have downloaded their patrol schedules, one of his soldiers reported. Quan nodded. Good. Send it to the fleet. The Admiral will know how to use it. Before they left, Quan pulled out a small metal plate and welded it to the hull of the destroyed ship. On the plate was etched a simple symbol, an open human hand. What is that for, Sergeant? A young Volf asked. It is a message, Quan said. Every Keth ship that finds this wreckage will see it. They will know we were here. They will know we can reach them anywhere. Will it frighten them? Quan smiled grimly. It already is. Throughout the Rethali system, rumors spread among the Keth warriors. They whispered about human soldiers who moved without sound. They told stories of ships that appeared from dead space and fired once before disappearing forever. They spoke of the symbol of the open hand, which was found on wreckage across the system. Some said the humans did not sleep. Others claimed they could see in total darkness. The wildest stories insisted that humans felt no fear, that they would attack even when outnumbered 100 to 1. On the Keth carrier Eternal Dominion, a young warrior named Creshful sat in his quarters, unable to rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the face of the human soldier who had killed his commander. The soldier had been a female, small by Keth standards, but she had moved with such speed and precision that 5 Keth warriors had fallen before anyone could react. And when Creshful had looked into her eyes, he had seen something that still haunted him. He had seen absolute determination. She was not fighting because she was ordered to. She was fighting because she believed. She would die before she surrendered, and she would take as many enemies with her as possible. Creshful had fought many battles. He had killed many enemies, but he had never faced an enemy who was not afraid to die deep in Keth-controlled space. Dr. Shin Yuna coordinated a different kind of warfare. From a hidden position on a small moon, she sent messages to the Keth civilian population. Citizens of the Dominion, her messages said, your military is dying in the Rethali system. Your commanders are hiding the truth from you. Ask them how many ships have been lost. Ask them why your soldiers are not coming home. At first, the Keth government ignored the transmissions. Then they tried to block them, but Yuna was too clever. She bounced her signals off satellites and through communication relays, reaching millions of Keth citizens. We are not your enemies, one message said. We fight because your government attacked an innocent species. We fight because they murdered helpless people. The war ends when the Keth leave Rethali space. Until then, we do not stop. The effect was slow but powerful. Keth citizens began asking questions. Families demanded to know about missing soldiers. News of defeat spread through back channels that the government could not control. Admiral Beak received reports of civil unrest on 2 Keth colonies. He nodded with grim satisfaction. The war is fought on many fronts, he told his officers. Ships and soldiers are only part of it. The Keth must understand that this fight will cost them everything, not just their fleet. Captain Yoon led the most daring raid of the campaign. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, had been damaged in the supply station attack. But it could still fly, and that was enough. He took 17 soldiers on a mission to rescue prisoners from a Keth processing facility. Intelligence said there were 3,000 Rethali being held there, waiting to be killed. The facility has 400 guards, his tactical officer warned. We will be outnumbered 20-1. Then we will have to be quick, Yoon said. They landed during a shift change when security was weakest. Yoon led from the front, moving through corridors he had memorized from stolen schematics. They reached the prisoner-holding area in 8 minutes. What they found there would stay with them forever. The Retholi were packed into cells so tight they could barely move. Many were wounded. Some were children clinging to parents who could not protect them. All of them wore the look of beings who had given up hope. Then they saw the human soldiers, and something changed. You came, an elderly Retholi whispered. The humans really came. We came, Yoon said. And we are taking you home. The escape was a nightmare of running and fighting. Keth guards swarmed from every direction. 3 human soldiers fell, buying time for the others. Captain Yoon took a wound to his shoulder, but kept moving. They reached the landing bay where their transport waited. Yoon counted heads as the Retholi rushed aboard. 3,007, his sergeant reported. All prisoners accounted for. Get them out of here, Yoon ordered. What about you, Captain? Yoon looked at the corridor behind them. More Keth were coming. Someone had to hold them back. I will buy you time. Captain, no. That is an order. Yoon smiled despite his pain. Tell the Admiral I did my duty. He turned and faced the oncoming enemy. Behind him, the transport lifted off, carrying 3,000 innocent lives to safety. Captain Yoon Tae-soo fought for 7 minutes before he was overwhelmed. But in those 7 minutes, he killed 42 Keth warriors. His body was found surrounded by enemies, his weapons still clutched in his hand. The news of his sacrifice spread through the human fleet. Soldiers wept and then grew hard. They had lost one of their best. The Keth would pay for it. At the Keth High Command, far from the Retholi system, military leaders gathered in emergency session. The war they had thought would be easy had become a disaster. We have lost 130 ships, a senior admiral reported. Our supply lines are broken. Our soldiers are refusing to patrol certain sectors because they fear the humans will appear. They are one fleet. Supreme Commander Thelvok shouted. How can one fleet cause this much damage? They do not fight like any enemy we have faced, another commander said quietly. They do not care about dying. They only care about making us suffer. Then we increase our forces. We send more ships. We have, Commander. It makes no difference. They hide and they strike and they vanish. Our numbers mean nothing against an enemy we cannot find. Thelvok felt something cold settle in his chest. It was a sensation he had not experienced in decades. It was the realization that he might lose. On a human supply ship far from the fighting, Corporal Im Soo-min wrote a letter to her family. She had been promoted after the supply station raid. She had seen friends die. She had killed enemies who tried to kill her. I understand now, she wrote. I understand why we are here. We are not just soldiers. We are the answer to everyone who ever cried for help and was ignored. We are the promise that somewhere in the universe, someone will always come. She paused, thinking of Captain Yoon, thinking of the Retholi children they had saved, thinking of the long road still ahead. The war is not over, she continued, but I know how it will end. The Keth will learn what happens when you wake humanity. They will learn that we do not forget. And someday, the whole galaxy will know that when the innocent called, we answered. She sealed the letter and returned to her station. The hunt continued. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the Keth homeworld like ghosts rising from the void. 43 ships remained from the original 47, battered and scarred but unbroken. They arranged themselves in a single line facing the Keth capital planet. On the surface below, billions of Keth citizens looked up at the sky with fear. For the first time in their history, an enemy had reached their home. Admiral Beak J-Ho stood on the bridge of the Unbroken Will, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the enemy planet. Behind him, Ambassador Cho Dae-won had arrived from a secure location to deliver humanity's final message. "Open a channel to the Keth Supreme Command," Beak ordered. The view screen flickered, and Supreme Commander Thelvok appeared. He looked different from the confident warrior who had laughed at human threats months ago. His scales were pale. His 4 eyes were rimmed with dark circles. He had the look of someone who had not slept in weeks. "Human Admiral," Thelvok said, his voice strained. "You have made your point. State your terms." Beak stepped aside, and Ambassador Cho moved forward. "Supreme Commander, I am Ambassador Cho Dae-won of the Human Federation. We are here to end this war. Then we negotiate. What do you want? Territory? Resources? Slaves?" Cho shook his head slowly. "We want none of those things. We want you to release all Rethali prisoners. Every single one. We want you to withdraw all forces from Rethali space. We want you to pay reparations for the damage you have caused. And we want your personal guarantee that the Keth Dominion will never attack an innocent species again." Thelvok's eyes widened. "That is everything. You ask for complete surrender." "No," Cho said quietly. "Complete surrender would mean we destroy your fleet, occupy your worlds, and dismantle your government. We are not asking for that. We are giving you a chance to walk away with your civilization intact. And if I refuse?" Ambassador Cho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was sad rather than angry. "Supreme Commander, do you know the history of my species?" "I know you are young and weak, and we are old," Cho interrupted. "Our planet is covered with the graves of warriors who thought they could not lose. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have invented weapons that could burn entire cities in seconds. We have killed millions of our own kind in wars that served no purpose." He stepped closer to the screen. "We learned something from all that death. We learned that war is not about strength or numbers. It is about will. It is about how much you are willing to sacrifice for what you believe. And when humans believe in something, we do not stop, ever. You cannot defeat our full military force," Thelvok said, but his voice wavered. "Perhaps not." Cho nodded. "But we can hurt you. We can burn your shipyards and destroy your factories. We can turn your colonies against you. We can make the name human a nightmare that Keth children whisper about in the dark." He paused. "You started this war to harvest resources from a weaker species. Was it worth it? Has anything you gained from the Rethali been worth what you have lost to us?" Thelvok did not answer. "We are not here because we hate the Keth," Cho continued. "We are here because we cannot stand by while innocents suffer. We are here because someone had to come. If you end this war today, we will not pursue revenge. We will leave you in peace. But if you continue, we will not stop until your dominion no longer exists. You would destroy yourselves trying." "Yes." Cho's voice was simple and honest. "We would. That is what you do not understand about us. We would rather die fighting for something right than live ignoring something wrong." Behind Thelvok, other Keth commanders had gathered. They looked at each other with uncertainty. The will to fight was draining from their faces. "Your fleet is in ruins," Admiral Beak added. "Your supply lines are broken. Your soldiers are afraid to patrol their own space. Your citizens are asking questions your government cannot answer. This war is already over, Supreme Commander. The only question is how many more of your people have to die before you accept that." Thelvok was silent for a long time. The weight of his failure pressed down on him. He thought of the ships he had lost, the warriors who had fallen, the fear that now infected his entire military. And he thought of the human soldiers who kept coming, no matter what, who died and were replaced by others just as determined. who could not be bribed or frightened or broken. "Your terms," he said finally. "I accept them." Relief washed through the human fleet, but there were no cheers. Tumei had died for celebration. "The prisoner release will begin immediately," Cho said. "Our ships will escort them home. And Supreme Commander, remember this moment. Remember that mercy was offered when it did not have to be. Do not make us come back." The transmission ended. 1 week later, the human fleet entered Ridali space as escorts for thousands of returning refugees. Prime Minister Vashendra stood at the viewport of her ship, watching her homeworld grow larger with tears streaming down her face. Ambassador Cho stood beside her. "We are home," she whispered. "I never thought I would see it again." "Your people showed great courage," Cho said. "The resistance movements you built helped us more than you know. We learned it from you." Vashendra turned to face him. "Before you came, we had forgotten how to fight. We had accepted that we would die. You reminded us that survival is a choice." She took his hand in her four-fingered grip. "Ambassador, what do humans want in return for this? You have saved my entire species. We owe you everything." Cho smiled gently. "We want nothing except that you remember. Remember that when others turned away, humans came. Remember that somewhere in the galaxy, there is a species that will fight for strangers because it is the right thing to do. Why? Why did you risk so much for people you had never met?" Cho looked out at the stars. He thought of Captain Yoon, who had died so the prisoners could escape. He thought of Corporal Im, who had grown from frightened soldier to hardened warrior. He thought of all the humans who had given everything for an alien species on the other side of the galaxy. "Because we know what it feels like to be alone," he said quietly. "Our history is full of people who called for help, and no one came. We decided that we would be different. We decided that wherever there is suffering, wherever there is injustice, wherever the innocent are being hurt, humanity will answer." He turned back to Vashendra. "That is our promise to the universe. Not because we are strong, but because we remember what it means to be weak." At the Galactic Council, observers who had expected to watch humanity's destruction filed their reports with trembling hands. The words they wrote would reshape galactic politics for generations. Human civilization is designated as commitment class. Their military strength is secondary to their psychological warfare capabilities, an absolute refusal to surrender. All council species are advised to avoid conflict with humanity. If attacked by humans, immediate negotiation is recommended. Extended warfare against this species is not survivable. On Earth, the fleet returned to heroes' welcomes. But the soldiers did not feel like heroes. They had seen too much death. They had lost too many friends. Corporal Im Sumin, now Sergeant Im, stood at the memorial wall where the names of the fallen were carved. She traced her fingers over Captain Yoon's name. "We did it, sir," she whispered. "The Rithali are safe. The Keth will never hurt them again." She looked at her reflection in the polished stone. She was not the same frightened young woman who had shipped out months ago. She understood now what it meant to be human. It meant standing up when others sat down. It meant fighting when others fled. It meant caring about strangers as if they were family. "I will make sure they remember," she promised. "I will make sure the whole galaxy knows what we did here and why we did it." She walked away from the memorial, past rows of soldiers saying their own goodbyes. Above them, the sky was peaceful and blue, filled with the promise of tomorrow. Somewhere among the stars, the Rithali were rebuilding their world. The Keth Dominion was licking its wounds. And in the halls of the Galactic Council, species who had once dismissed humanity now spoke of them with respect and fear. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. When you hurt the innocent, when you prey upon the weak, when you think no one will come to stop you, look to the stars. Because somewhere out there, humans are watching. And when you least expect it, they will answer the call. That is what it means to be human. That is humanity's gift to the universe. And that is why, no matter what challenges lay ahead, the darkness would never win, because humanity would always come.